All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Which players have the most to gain from training camp or this year in training camp? Before we get to that, let's thank Pig and a Pickle, our title sponsor. 2 locations there in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. or until they run out. 7 days a week in both locations. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Get the brisket. All right, I was on Niners Nation, and Jason Aponte had a really good article on there today. 2 players, in his opinion, that have the most to gain in training camp. And, I like the candidates that he went with, and then I'm going to give you a couple of my own. He's going with Elijah Mitchell and Drake Jackson. Elijah Mitchell on offense and Drake Jackson on defense. Elijah Mitchell is a really talented player. He doesn't fumble. He runs well between the tackles. I think Kyle Shanahan already kind of showed us how he wants to utilize Elijah Mitchell. He wants to use him as a finisher, in the second half, running between the tackles. Why? Because he doesn't fumble and he knows how to pick and slide. He can find that open spot on a defensive line. And if the thing's blocked for 2, he gets 2. If it's blocked for 4, he gets 4. This guy fills, whatever the run is blocked for, he's going to get you at least that much. He falls forward. He's very efficient. He's very dependable. I think Elijah Mitchell's a good guy to bank on this year as a guy who's going to play well in camp. And, he looks at him as a guy that's got a lot to gain because, the health of Christian McCaffrey. We don't know about exactly if McCaffrey will be healthy. We don't know about exactly the pecking order in camp at the running back spot. Where does Jordan Mason slot in? Where does Ty Davis Price slot in? What about the undrafted rookies? And he's looking at Elijah Mitchell saying Elijah could be a primary guy. And I agree with that. I think Elijah is a really good young back, and that one makes a lot of sense. Drake Jackson, I also agree with. I mean, Drake Jackson is a second-round pick. He's put on good weight in the upper body. They've moved on from Amenahue and Jordan Willis and Samson Ebukam, so there's great opportunity here. They decided to pay Javon Hargrave to pair him with Bosa and Eric Armstead, and now you got Jackson, who's got a chance to kind of round out that defensive front. And, man, with Hargrave and Armstead giving you inside penetration, the quarterback's going to try to slide out the side door. And Bosa and Drake Jackson, if they can stay healthy, may run into double-digit sacks just because of the presence of Hargrave and Armstead. So I love Drake Jackson's talent, and I think he's going to be able to take his game to another level. And I think that's a good call by Aponte, saying that, Jackson's a guy who could have a huge camp. And he might be a guy to really watch for in the preseason on the defensive side of the ball. And, Drake, if Drake looks as good in camp and in the preseason as he looked in the OTAs and in the mini camp, yeah, I think that's a great name too. All right, let me give you a couple more that I'm looking for to have, big impacts in camp. Now, the two guys on the offense I'm looking for are receivers, Tay Martin and Danny Gray. Both, second-year guys. Gray was a third-round pick. Tay Martin was an undrafted free agent. Gray's got huge speed. I mean, he's a vertical threat. We're talking about a guy who was clocked at 4.33, but he plays more like 4.25. I mean, he really separates. His play speed is noticeable. And Danny Gray's got good ball skills, too. And I just think Danny Gray, to me, at the minicamp, looked stronger. He knew what he was doing more. I'm really excited about his potential. He's going to make the team. He's a vertical threat. He creates a ton of space underneath for the other receivers. He can take the top off the defense, run off the coverage, whatever way you want to state it. Danny Gray's a home run hitter. And I think when you're dealing with, Kyle Shanahan, he understands the nuances of play calling, and you got to have a guy like Gray if you want to create that space for your other receivers underneath and your backs and your tight ends. So I think Danny Gray is going to bust out and be huge. I really do. And I expect Gray to make the team. But the other guy is Tay Martin. Tay Martin was a very good player. He started at Wazoo. And then due to the pandemic, he's a Louisiana kid, great athlete in high school, went to Washington State. This guy was a 3-time all-district basketball player in high school. First team all-state as a senior, as a receiver. And he decided to go to Pullman and play at Wazoo. and he earned playing time in 13 games in the late Mike Leach, his offense there as a true freshman. Leach coached him up at Wazoo. He started all 13 games in 2018, and then he transferred from Washington State to Oklahoma State for 2020, largely due to the pandemic. Tay told me, hey, I was afraid that maybe the Pac-12 wouldn't even play. So he wanted to make sure he was going to continue playing, and that's why he left Pullman for Oklahoma State in 2020. He played in 8 games as a reserve for the Cowboys, but came on strong for the team in the Cheez-It Bowl win over Miami. He had 6 catches for 73 yards. And then he was Oklahoma State's top receiver in 2021. He caught 80 balls for over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, really, really good. And then when you watched him in the bowl game against Notre Dame, he was the best player on the field. I think it was like 4 catches or 5 catches, 109 yards, 3 touchdowns, something like that. So he doesn't have great upper body strength, didn't lift coming out into the draft, didn't do the bench, and needed to get stronger. But the Niners took him as an undrafted free agent, put him on the practice squad, developed him all year. And just watching some of the highlights of Tay running routes with Trey Lance in Dallas at TCU a few weeks ago, you can see he looks phenomenal. Now, granted, it's a workout, but the guy looks faster. He's bigger. He's stronger. He's more confident. He knows the offense. The quarterbacks know him. I think this guy could be a red zone mismatch. If Jawan Jennings doesn't come to play this summer, man, Tay Martin and Ronnie Bell could really threaten him for his gig. So a lot of people were talking about Ronnie Bell because he was a 7th-round pick this year. A lot of people like Danny Gray because of the speed factor. Nobody's really talking about Tay Martin, but they called him Big Play Tay at Oak State. And if you watch this guy, he's got natural receiving ability. He's got good height, about 6'3", long arms, very athletic, put on good weight in the upper body. He's stronger now. He knows the offense. I expect Tay Martin to go off this summer and make a real impact and show what he's got in the preseason. So take a look at those 2 receivers, Danny Gray and Tay Martin. Now let's flip to the defensive side of the ball. As I said, I agree with Ponte's Drake Jackson thought. There's no question Drake has got an opportunity to run with the starting defensive end job opposite Nick Bosa. But 2 other guys that I think have a great opportunity this summer as well. One is Kalia Davis. Kalia Davis was a 6th-round pick in the 2022 draft out of Central Florida. He's a former linebacker who just kept getting bigger and stronger and faster, and he's now 6'1", 310 pounds, and fast. And if you watched him at the end of the year in practice, this guy stands out. I mean, the 49ers signed Javon Hargrave. They've got Kevin Givens. It's not like they don't have any other players at defensive tackle. They got a pretty good depth right at that spot. You got Hargrave and Armstead as your ones. You still got Kinlaw there. You got Kevin Givens. You got T.Y. McGill, Marlon Davidson, Spencer Wagee. But Kalia Davis has the kind of talent to really be a major pass rusher as an interior rusher in a rotation. And to me, I'm looking for him this summer to really show what he's got. He's got plenty of time to get healthy, get adjusted. I talked to him a couple times last year. I don't think people have any clue how good Kalia Davis really is. And I can't wait to see him this summer. If he's healthy and rocking and rolling, Kalia Davis could not only be a nice player inside, he could be a very, very good contributor on that defensive line. Think a Kevin Givens type, but with like maybe 30 pounds heavier, but he moves better. I mean, that's what Kalia Davis is. He's kind of a cross between Kevin Givens and DJ Jones. If you remember DJ Jones when he was here, DJ was 320 and he had great quickness, great strength. Givens has got unbelievable quickness, but not quite the size. Kalia Davis is closer to 320 pounds and he's fast. So watch out for Kalia Davis. I think he could really be special. And then with the news that Darrell Luter Jr. Has been placed on the PUP list, I think there's new life there for Ambry Thomas. 3rd-round pick. Last year was a wasted year. Just didn't happen for him. Played like 40 snaps all year. The year before that, though, he was really coming on, and he's formerly a third-round pick out of Michigan. The talent's there, the opportunity's there. I think Ambry Thomas, with the addition of Steve Wilkes, that will give him a new lease on life, a new position coach, a fresh start. I expect Ambry Thomas to really play well this summer and compete for a roster spot. So, good article on Niners Nation by Aponte. He says the two players with the most to gain in training camp are Elijah Mitchell and Drake Jackson. I like his, but I'll go with Danny Gray and Tay Martin on offense, Kalia Davis and Ambry Thomas on defense. All right, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. are their hours, or until they run out. Get the brisket. And thanks to all you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.